What is up, everybody? It's Mark from 403 Fauna. Waiting on Jason. Actually, he just showed up. He said, "Yes, you made it." Woo.
I forgot to press enter studio.
Perfect
Multitasking at
timing.
the moment.
This is the Fauna topic. I'm Mark from 403 Fauna, along with
Jason Radass Designs.
every week we talk about relevant topics to the ball python and reptile industry. And today's topic is going to be on. Yeah, I wanted to bring this topic up because I just started a new relationship and it's been going really well, and I kind of wanted to share previous relationship I had, which um, was kind of a factor that led to me leaving the hobby the first time, and just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was an interesting topic to share. I know I'm sure you've had relationships that have went well and have not during your reptile
Mhm.
collecting years, and I thought we'd share ours as long as you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, sure. I'm like a transparent, like open book. I'm like, like an encyclopedia at the library. You could check me out for like a week.
And of course, we'll have our usual subjects that we'll be covering.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, how was your week with ball pythons or life in general?
Wow. Yeah, it was an interesting week, Mark. Talk about soap opera relationship stuff. I stayed in the desert a bit during the weekend and like I usually just come here like on Fridays. Sometimes I'll zip over like on a Tuesday and do some stuff, some extra stuff. But I stayed here from like I think Thursday night till like Wednesday in the middle of the night. And that was because I was pretty stressed out, so I wanted some emotional support. Had a lot of changes in my life, a lot of transitions, and on Thursday, I got suspended from work for the last hour, and I was like, oh well, hopefully this will blow over. And one thing that I got is like, besides my sobriety, besides my car, is like my job is kind of like a foundation for me. It pays pretty well and I like it. I like everyone I work with, except for one person, and all the customers and everything. So yeah, so I figured that would blow over, and it didn't. So I got fired. I found out,
Oh my god.
what? Yeah, Wednesday. I don't get fired very often, unless like I want to get fired. Like and so I moved up to Big Bear, and then I 5 weeks later got fired from my job. So that was uh that was interesting. I knew that that was a possibility, and I have like a lawyer to contact, and I have the union working on it, and I don't expect it to like be reversed, but um yeah, transitions. And when I was in well, I guess I'll get to this later when we talk relationships. But like, yeah, that threw off my week a bit. I got here today and then checked on most of the snakes really quick. They had all gotten refreshed and watered and stuff when I was last here. And I finally I got clutch number two of the year of eggs. So I just kind of lifted her up. I knew, like I had told you, I'd seen some snakes doing some things, and so I knew like some stuff was coming, and I think there's a couple more snakes. But yeah, I saw her curled up a little bit more like a tower, like a cone, and I lifted her up a little bit. And I don't know, it doesn't look like there's very many. It looks like maybe I'm expecting there to be like 4 or 5 eggs. But she's a proven breeder and she's a het monarch. And I paired a pastel monarch to her. And she's a Mojave. So I could get, if everything looks good, I haven't checked the eggs out. I could get, Mojave monarchs and some monarchs and pastel monarchs. So yeah, I'll deal with that in a little bit. But yeah, kind of a bummer, kind of a bummer. Like some of us like really our identity kind of swirls around, like what we do for a living
Hmm.
more than just like who we are and what we represent, what we stand for as like a person. And I like my job. I like having a job where I'm really able to work with the public and be social. And so yeah, it kind of takes that away from me too in the community. So yeah, sad, but also not the end of the world. It's not the only job I've ever had. And I'm already starting to apply it at different places. And sometimes things just happen for a reason. And you just got to figure out what that is. And you got to just roll with new opportunities in life. And so that was my week with ball pythons and life in general, Mark.
Wow. Well, I don't mean to rub it things in here, but we just started summer break here.
Hmm.
Um, eggs are dropping.
Hmm.
I'm in a new relationship, so oh my gosh, I'm on cloud nine right now, and it,
Yeah,
it
that's
bums
good.
bums me out to hear about your situation. But
Well, it's okay. Like life is filled with ups and downs, and we wouldn't really appreciate what we have. So, like your current situation, worked hard all year, and now you get to take a little bit of a break, and you got more time for personal stuff. You got a new person in your life. You got things going good with the collection. You got the podcast rolling. Like you wouldn't appreciate those things as much if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth in Beverly Hills, and where you didn't have to be a teacher and, strive for certain things that you're interested in and want to be involved in. You'd just be like on a yacht somewhere, not even really fully appreciating the breeze from the Caribbean. And, so that's just part of life, you know. So the main thing that it really comes down to, in whatever it is, like your snake collection or your other hobby or your job or your living situation or your relationship, like are you really grateful for it? Are you grateful for what you have? Do you appreciate the good things, the simple things? Just the mellow, simple comforts. Like, are you happy in life? And you can't really put a price tag on happiness. And right now, Mark is super rich. So that's good. And you want to like you know, be grateful for that and hold on to that and be like in the moment and not worried so much about the future and something that you're upset about from the past. Just like enjoy this summer, enjoy this person, enjoy the snakes that you have, and just like allow yourself to be happy.
thank you very much. Um,
Yeah.
it's not all rainbows and unicorns. I'm still awaiting a shed test for puzzle. I know it's not a big issue, but
Mm-hmm.
I did send in to RGI the 2 for 4 testing, and we talked about it last week how 2 came back really good, and I was waiting on a puzzle. They did the puzzle again, and the test failed again. I don't know how, and they're going to give it one more try. I'm going to take that as kind of a good sign because just looking at the girl, she looks different. She's got some puzzle-like characteristics, so I could
Mm-hmm.
always just prove her out the old way. But
Yeah, you totally
so
could.
that test didn't come back well. I've got some girls that look like they're building nests that I didn't think would go, so that's a positive. And I've got one girl who's hanging out on the cool side that I haven't even bred yet, so I might give her a shot. So I'm not going to have like the super craziest year, but what I have is going to be for my collection things that I could hold back. And it's going to be a lot of testing that needs to be done on that. And we'll get more into the testing. But yeah,
Well, I
that's,
saw I saw a video from one on a Kirby today. Did you check that out?
yeah, I did the
So
pinstripe monsoon. Yeah,
yeah, that shows a little bit of promise for the girl that you got from her.
yeah. Big shout out to Anna Kirby and
Hmm.
congratulations for her pinstripe monsoon. It didn't end up looking like I would have liked it to look. Um,
Mm-mm.
it was almost patternless. We'll see when it comes out of the egg, but
Yeah.
she proved out her 50% het monsoon, and hopefully the one that I got from her will prove out as well.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out of the week to Adrian from Gene Chasers. He got the question right last week, and he's the guy who always mentions to turn it up during the chat. So we'll try to turn it up. I don't see him here yet. In his honor, turn up
See
for
if I
Adrian.
can adjust my volume.
But I believe he's from Southern California, and he did have a really good video on Bomb Project's breeder show that he did earlier in the year, or maybe last year. But everybody check out Gene Chasers Adrian on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah, and make sure to turn it up.
Yes. Now I see only 3 in the audience right now, which increases your chances of winning this week's question of the week. And of course, the winner will get put into a raffle, winning a snake from myself and Jason, and also getting a shout out. And if you want to be on a show for a small segment, you can do that as well. So let's pull up our question of the week. I try to make it relevant to the subjects that we do. So our question of the week is, which of these brands is not known to be run by a power couple? Some of these are pretty obvious. A, Leviathan Snakes. B, Keys Constrictors. C, Proper Royals. Or D, Hair Hollow Farm. Now, one of them's really obvious here. Which one is that, Jason?
Leviathan.
Yeah, they're the power couple. They're the hot power couple in the industry right now. And Old Devil Ball Python says C. Now, you've got a little bit more insight into Adam, but from the impression that I have, he doesn't really share his partner, although he does have a supportive partner, I'd imagine, because they moved all around and stuff. But any insights into Adam and his partner?
Yeah, he his wife just kind of lets him do his thing. So his son will help him a little bit, and it's pretty cool when you see people that have a big participation and involvement in the hobby over the years, and their significant other or their family just is supportive but doesn't really get involved and stays hands off and just lets them
Yeah.
supports them doing their thing. And that's what she does. She seems like a pretty nice person, from what I've talked to him about. And um they have their kid's a good kid, so um yeah, that's not exactly qualifying as power couple in the sense of, both being somewhat involved in the hobby.
That's correct. And we have Keys Constrictors, Terrence and
Mhm.
Keisha. Of course, they're both active in the community, especially with their podcast. And
Mhm.
Jessica, along with her husband, I believe Chris. Chris runs the show
Mhm.
behind the scenes, and you'll see him pop up on whenever she has a podcast or an auction. So the only one
Yeah.
I didn't hear of was Adam, but he does have a supportive partner, and that's
Mhm.
the best. That not everybody's gonna love what you do as long as they support
Right.
you. That's the good
Yeah.
thing.
That's what we could all hope for in a relationship.
So congratulations, Old Devil Ball Pythons. You'll be put in the raffle and get the shout out next week. And if you want to come on the show next week, message me on Instagram, and we'll have you on for a little segment here on the fauna topic. Now, do you have your snake ready, Jason?
I do. I do have my snake ready once again in a like a bag. I guess that's actually a purse. I put him on the table. He was all over the place, wasn't going to chill. And that worked last week. So if you want a snake to calm down, just put it in a purse or a bag with other stuff in it, and they just relax and get comfy. So I don't believe I've shown this guy before. I don't think so.
Ooh, I know that color.
Yeah,
That's got to be sunset, right?
it is.
So sunset, and how big is that, and how old is it?
He is probably about almost 2 now, and I haven't weighed him recently, but he is breeding. He's been breeding since the beginning of winter. He was a little bit small. He was like a tiny bit neglected and not power fed. Um, and it came from that collection that I acquired. And the reason why I initially, a year before I acquired him, contacted that person was because they had like 66% het sunset offspring that I was interested in at that time. And down the road, 12 plus months later, ended up with his full collection. And this was the only sunset that he hatched from, I think, like 3 pairings. I thought it was 2, but he got 3 clutches from a het to het that he paid $4,000 for a handful of years ago. And this was the only one from all those pairings that hatched as a sunset. And that just goes to show you sometimes the odds don't work out for you. And
Are there any genes involved there?
hmm?
Is there any other genes involved?
Yeah, one other simple um, gene.
Okay, we got a guess. Spot nose sunset vanilla.
No, he does look a little bit vanilla-y though, doesn't he? But no, it's pastel.
Okay. Now that one has maintained its color really well, and
Pretty
um,
good, yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess
he's
that
done
pastel's helping out with that.
he's done all right, and he has a lot of like it doesn't show up quite as much in this captured movement, but there's a lot of orange on his side,
Hmm.
almost like as if he was OD, but he's not. He just is fairly colorful. Not as contrasting as some I've seen, not as dark as some, but not as like washed out as some as well. And maybe that's partially because he's a boy, maybe. I don't know. But he has been paired with a pastel ultra male female on and off since last year. And see, I put him in recently with a monarch girl, a really big monarch girl, way bigger than him, but they've gotten along pretty well. Um, and then I put him back in today. I took him out. I had him since Tuesday in with the ultra male female again, just because nothing seems to be going on with her. And so I just put him back in there. And then now I'll probably just take him out and let him have some food and rest. Pretty determined little breeder he is for a little guy. I would
Two
have
great
to get
projects.
I would have to guess he's probably like 700 grams, 750 grams, something like that. What was that you're saying?
Two great projects you got going on: the Monarch and Ultramel. I don't think the
Yeah.
Monarch Sunset has been made, but the Ultramel Sunset has, and it's a beautiful snake.
Yeah, and the pastel monarch guy that I got, he's a really pretty snake. I don't prefer pastel and monarch, although sometimes it looks good, but he's really cool looking. And I don't know, he just got really worn out from all the pairings that I did with him since last like geez, like almost like summer, like at least fall. And I didn't want him to die. I had the one male die. It felt really bad. So I've just been like beefing him up for a while. And he's finally like eating bigger and bigger and bigger meals and putting on some weight and seems like normal. I kind of wanted to give him a little bit more time, but I just said heck with it. I feel comfortable that he's healthy. If I see anything that makes me worry, I'll just take him right out. And I put him in with my only clown female, and I thought about putting him in with some other girls that I had, but I feel like they are gravid. So, and of course today, maybe he'll be a father because those eggs from the het monarch, that's the only male she's ever met. So I'm hoping that there's like three or four like really good eggs. I almost felt like I saw like a slug, but didn't look like obvious
Mhm.
slug, but it was a little discolored and it was a little smaller. So I'll check it out. I'll find out after the show. But I like Monarch. It's my favorite gene, and that'll be a possibility to finally hatch one. So that'll be cool.
It's a very exciting clutch.
Yeah.
Let's, let's check out the news this week. Gray Rider Reptiles just announced that he had a successful run of tests from blood taken via egg cuttings. Now, I personally find this really cool because, hatchlings, they take a week or two to shed their first skin, and usually you have them all in one tub, so you can't really individualize each shed. But when you're cutting those eggs and you get a little dropper and put it on a piece of paper and put it in a Ziploc, and you can have that, you can get your test results immediately. And as soon as they got a few meals in them, send them out to their new home. But just really exciting news on that front. What do you think of
Hmm.
that?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? I mean, a lot of times when the government is doing, investigations with DNA and crimes, they usually use saliva or blood to get their results. They don't like peel off a little bit of someone's skin. But I mean that can I guess that could take place too. But yeah, I think that is gonna work for some people to not have to wait. And in the future, when there's, testing for other species more often, at some point we'll get there. Blood pythons, I don't think they shed for like a good long time, like 2 or 3 months or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
So, it could come in handy with other species and could be practiced with ball pythons for a while.
Speaking of eggs, I noticed, and I meant to put a picture on, and I just completely forgot. I noticed the substrate that you use to in your
Hmm.
egg box. You want to talk about that a little bit, and have you used that before? Or is this something new?
Yeah, yeah, with the bell eggs that I was so excited about, it took me 20 months from when I had Lucy to when I hatched babies. So, um, I was pretty excited about that. And I just kind of went back to thinking when I had a wild caught uh, ball python way back in the day from like they used to export them from like Togo and Ghana regularly, giant snakes. And they would usually be like what are now termed like as voltas,
Hmm.
but they can come from a large spread out region though, where ball pythons actually get bigger bigger heads. I imagine probably live a little bit longer as well. That's my own speculation. And lay larger, have been proven to lay larger clutches. I think I've even heard of ones like a bit over 20. So sometimes like, a couple dozen eggs. And they tend to be bigger. And I got this girl and she laid, I don't remember now what it was, but it was like 13 or 14 eggs, but they were like ostrich eggs. They're like huge. And way back in the day, I used to hatch everything mostly in like hovabators. It just, even when I got to more rare species and more complicated and more valuable stuff, I just stuck with that and had pretty good success, really. But I didn't keep it humid enough. And so now, from what people have learned is, you know, um, percentage wise, over like data and years and time and experience, like it's best to keep ball python eggs very humid. So most people keep them up in like, 98, 99% like humidity. And sometimes that can backfire a tiny bit, but you figure ball pythons lay their eggs generally in like the center of like termite mounds and other like hollowed out underground areas. Probably sometimes other like rodent or other snake dens and whatnot. And it's very humid down there. And I would imagine a lot of the times it's probably not as warm as people think. But that's how I feel. Um, but their humidity is it's pretty easy to surmise that it would be very, very high down underground. And I felt like now with a makeshift incubator, like a refrigerator that's been converted with heat panel and a little fan and stuff, that we put them in all these little, Tupperware containers, and some people have hatched eggs of all different kinds of snakes just directly over water. Some people recommend that with green tree pythons, and other snakes, from tropical areas. But lots of different things have been tried over the years. And I find in my experience from hatching everything from chameleons to geckos to tarantulas to snakes and just tons of different things, that um, keeping the humidity up by a more natural direct method of moss is a way to trap in a little bit more humidity with the eggs directly. Like I mostly will like surround the eggs, but I'll also cover them at times a little bit too. So I just take like something that's known to be like fairly organic or very, very clean, and just like wring it out all the way. I get it super wet and then just wring it out till you can't wring it out anymore so that it's not too humid. It doesn't get like moldy and whatnot. And then just fluff it all up, spring it all out, air it out a little bit, and then add that to whatever it is the incubation medium that you're using happens to be. So in this in particular case, it's like sponges, so wet, sterile, like hospital style sponges. And then I'll get those really wet. And then there's like light diffuser that goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And then even before that, there's like another layer of like a mesh. And that way none of that water can somehow wick back up. They're separated by enough. And yeah, and then the moss just adds another layer of humidity. And right now, the eggs that are in there, I didn't put press and seal. So everybody swears about, press and seal, and that's the way, and that is definitely going to trap in a lot of air. And you could talk to all sorts of different breeders, propagators of reptiles of all sorts, and how they incubate. And artificially, they'll like to, some people like to like burp the container and give it some air and some gas exchange. Some people are impatient, so they're checking on the eggs all the time. You really want to avoid doing that too much. But like I would say, like with chameleons, they take forever to hatch, a lot of species. Some it's, a few months, 5 months, 6 months, and some it's like 9, 10, 11, 12 months. So I would check on the eggs at, intervals. Like I had so much time is going by, so at least once a month, at least I'm checking on them. But with ball python eggs, we can usually see them really good, and we have an understanding of how quick that they hatch. And we just want to make sure that things are as sterile as possible and that there isn't any funky bacteria. And the more you open a container that is like nice and organic medium, whether you use organic vermiculite or perlite or what it is that you're using, like you want to be careful about your hands and
Mm-hmm.
getting, any oils, any bacterias, anything like chemicals, anything that's on your hands or is sprayed or is in the air near them when you're opening them from beginning to end. You want to like limit that as much. Like I used to be in hey Kike, I used to be in the reef community and in the reef hobby, and in saltwater tanks, they're a lot less complicated and difficult than people really think. I actually find them to be easier than really advanced freshwater setups. But the thing is, when you're putting your hands into a reef tank, which is a mini ocean, it's a little teeny tiny, ocean on a little microcosm that you create, this little tank. And everything, like, there's less of a buffer zone. You have Exxon Valdez oil spills in the ocean. There's this huge buffer zone of how much water is on our planet,
Mhm.
and the bacterias and the algae and the things that can, like, deal with that. But in a closed environment on a smaller scale, you really want to be careful. So every time you dip your hand into a saltwater tank, you want to make sure you don't have like SPF 70 on, and like lotion and like cologne and things like that, and be mindful of that. So I view egg containers the same way, but just from more of like a hospital, like fresh air standpoint. And but to simply answer your question, yeah, New Zealand moss. And I just, put some on top, and it just helps with the humidity a little bit, and it worked really well last time. And when the eggs pipped on their own and hatched on their own over the course of 48 hours, they were like really liquidy, really moist. It's just like goo is just coming out, and they were really healthy. So um, I felt like it was a good decision. So that's what I'm running with again, and that's what I'll use today when I set up the other eggs. And I'll probably use like the press and seal on this container, and I might just leave it off on the one that I've already set up. I think it's got a little teeny tiny hole in the top, and I think I'll just try that with those eggs and see how that goes. But with these ones from today, super important. I'll just go with what I did last time, which is what I described, plus press and seal, and I'll write down the date and be patient.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I thought it was super interesting. Okay, another thing in the news is that RGI shed tests are 25% off for the month of June through Morph Market. Great
Mm,
deal. I'm going to take advantage of it. I've got some sheds already ready to go out. So
mhm.
take advantage of that offer. That's through Morph Market. If you have Clutch, I believe there's even better deals on Clutch. I tried to look for it real quick before the show, but I wasn't able to find out. But
Mhm.
I think because Morph Market is helping them, they're able to offer that deal. So
Nice.
okay, so let's get into the meat of our topic here, and that is
Mhm.
relationships and ball pythons. And I want to talk about my first run through with ball pythons and why I got out of the hobby. I think I may have mentioned it here or other shows, but I didn't really go into detail. I'm not going to go into super detail about it, but the main gist of it is that um, I was getting divorced. Actually,
Mm.
let me go back and talk about how she was not supportive of what I wanted to do. And when you're going into a relationship, I think they need to know exactly what you have. And I shared with her the snakes and everything, and she seemed fine with it. And then when we moved in together, it was fine for a while. But then after a couple of months, I was like, hey, you know what? Can you take these snakes to school? And so I took the snakes to school. And when they're at school, I'm not around them 24/7, so I can't check up on them. And at one point, I had a thermostat fail, and that caused like a, an entire rack of snakes to die because of that. So I was really
Mm.
upset about that. And you know, after a while, the relationship did not work out, and it's after getting divorced, I was hard up for money, and I wasn't able to feed the snakes, so I was just giving them away. I was selling what I could, managed to keep two out of that, which through the pandemic helped bring me back into the hobby. But yeah, that's my story on how I got out the first time. Has there ever been a relationship that you were in that was not supportive of what you did?
Well, yeah, like My relationship where I had my kids way back in the day was a very long relationship. So we were together 16 years. I really wasn't ready to have kids when I did at such a young age, and I let her know that. And she was someone whose clock was ticking like a Unabomber package, and just decided to do it anyways. And for years, off and on, I'd be a little bit resentful for that. But my kids are really healthy and really smart and good looking and happy people. And so, everything happens for a reason. And that was a little bit out of my control. I tried to be a good dad. I definitely was not winning any Father of the Year awards and was making a lot of bad decisions in life in general. And I had a lot of partying days that a lot of issues and immaturity that stuck with me for many years. And at one point, I went through rehab and changed my career and was doing pretty good for a while. And then eventually had a downward spiral that affected that relationship. So even though that relationship and that family that I had didn't work out in the long run, um, in a sense, the only lack of support was more so just like I view as like deserving. So I got out of the hobby at that time because I eventually later on sobered up all the way and have stayed sober all this time. That's what I've needed to do to find happiness in my life and sanity. And so I've been out of the hobby until 2 years ago. So I was out of it for, I don't know, like over a decade, well over a decade, and was dissolving what I had for in different ways over the course of a couple years. So, yeah, I gained a lot of experience in it. My kids learned a lot from being around dogs and cats and reptiles. I think my daughter's third word was gecko. And she is now working on becoming a veterinarian. We don't
Cool.
really talk, unfortunately, right now, with other family stuff that transpired. So right now I don't get to chat with her. But I do know that she's on that path. And that just goes to show sometimes, growing up watching Jack Hanna on the Nature Channel and PBS and later on the Croc Hunter and all these guys like it makes, an influence um towards how people view um nature and flora and fauna and animals. And, there's zoos in every major city, pretty much throughout the world, but definitely in our country. And some people get way into reptiles, and some people just have an appreciation for them. They're more like a dog person or a cat person. But yeah, they've definitely um, played a bigger role and a bigger percentage of how many households in America reptiles are in. So that will then create more situations where people who aren't used to reptiles would be involved with somebody in a close relationship, an intimate relationship, and that will come into play whether they accept that or support that or become a big part of it. Like earlier we mentioned Leviathan snakes and Power Couple. Well, Steven wasn't a reptile person. He had never had reptiles before. Courtney was in the hobby a little bit as, just like a basic entry, person into the hobby. She's collecting a couple different things and she wanted to get more into that. And she shared that with her person that she found and fell in love with. And that person, luckily, was one who also found a fascination and interest in it and probably likes reptiles even more than her now. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's how things go. You'll go to a reptile show or you'll go to a Herp Society meeting, or you'll watch a video on YouTube and you'll see like, married couples or boyfriend girlfriends, like, sharing the hobby together. I've always been a tiny bit like envious of that because that's not exactly what I've ever had. And that kind of brings to the point where sometimes um, some people have more addictive personalities than other, Mark. I got to be careful and leave my bank card in my car when I go to the casino because I'll probably get in trouble and have. And the reptile hobby can be very addictive in the sense of like Temu or eBay or whatever somebody is into, collectibles, and vinyl pops, like anime, what comic books, whatever
Hmm.
it is, and people dive right into it, like I like to joke around that sometimes people that have pugs and Pomeranians, they have a higher likelihood of having a whole little entourage of them. I've had friends that have had like 11 Pomeranians, and I'm like, what are you doing? They look like little mogwais running around multiplying from getting wet. But yeah, sometimes that doesn't work out, and that's not the right uh match for people. And that's not what everybody wants to be involved in, all the things that go along with that, like temperature requirements and housing and space. And I'm sitting here in the kitchen where I used to live, and I can look across the living room, and there's two cages. They take up quite a bit of space. They're 4 by 2 by 2s, and I think they're like 28 inches deep or so when they come off of the wall to the front. And not everybody, that's not everyone's vibe. So yeah, that can be a challenge in this hobby, and something that comes into play if people are responsible with their finances, or are responsible with their keeping, or not. Like it can sometimes not work in either scenario. And everybody has the right to their own pursuit of happiness. And that's something that comes into play when people have to mesh common interests, and share things.
Coach Robert brought up a good point, and it brings back to what we were talking about on our question of the week. But he 10 years with his wife, and his wife doesn't help him out, but she doesn't prevent him from doing what he loves, and that's a super important part of a relationship. Now, entering
Yeah.
this relationship with Pauline, if you're watching this, what's up? Um, I hope at least you're supportive of me, and you don't have to be totally into it. But yeah, that's the important thing here. Let's go to this last point here.
Mhm.
So, what's the ideal situation? And let's look at some of our idols in the industry who are a great couple. We mentioned Leviathan already. Keys
Mhm.
Constrictors, how they work so closely together in their podcast and with their snakes and everything. Now, you don't have to have a partner who's totally into it like you are. And in my relationship, she has her things, I have my things, and just as long as we're supportive of each other, that's going to be the important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've heard Billy Rose talk on some of his podcasts before about, I mean, not every relationship ends well. Some there's a lot of resentment, and some people will even say that everyone they're in a serious relationship with, and it ends, um, that they just don't want to have that person in their life anymore. That's how some people view relationships. It can sometimes be a maturity thing or lack thereof, and then sometimes it's just you got to get away from someone. They're not healthy for you, and so you're making the right decision for yourself, and maybe even for them. But like Billy had likes to refer back to his ex, that she was not supportive, and for whatever, I don't know all the details, but it didn't work out, and he was going to have to take off with like all these snakes and be in this like difficult transition. and scramble around to try to keep his hobby going. And you can see where he is now. He's one of the bigger breeders and sellers of reptiles in Canada, and is a huge YouTube personality, and has a lot of knowledge to share, and a big collection, and a charismatic personality that is generally entertaining and informative, and he just kept going with his pursuit of happiness. So he wasn't going to let anything, not even like finances, stop him from doing what he loved. And that shows in his level of success. So that's what's worked for him. And now I saw he posted on Instagram the other day. I haven't been as attentive in recent months. I've been going through a lot, but I saw a post from him, and he's got some new love in his life, and they were out to a dinner, and they both looked really happy. And so sometimes that just all works out in the long run. You find somebody who's more accepting of who you are. Yeah.
Very much so. I remember there was a guy on YouTube. He really big, buff, muscular guy. He's went by Sid Snakes, and I was wondering where did this guy go? He just disappeared off the face of this planet. And I was searching Morph Market, and he had put his collection up for sale. And in the description, he said getting divorced, and he was really, really upset about the situation, and he had to sell his collection because of that. So speaking of the ideal situation, there's that downside to it, where if it doesn't work out, just like with myself, even though my collection wasn't that high value, I still had to get out at that time. So with this show, I just wanted to talk a little bit about being with someone who supports you, and that's going to help you get through the ups and downs of this ball python industry.
Yeah, I mean, and really in anything that you're involved in life, anything you do, like some people have supportive families, some people have big close families, and some people are orphans. And basically nomads, and live their life more alone without that closeness of family. And some people have a history of not having good relationships, and so all of those things are challenges that are separate from the hobby, but can affect people's involvement and continued involvement in the hobby. And I mean, you want to, the older you get, like, appreciate the people that are supportive in your life in any kind of way. So friends, family, coworkers, even acquaintances, just everybody that likes you and is supportive of you. You want to be supportive of them, and keep those good, trusted people in your circle. And some people don't have tons of friends. Some people aren't great at making friends. Some people have challenge. Like, I have a friend who I say this in for like different things in relation to different stuff all the time. But one of my good friends in Montana, she says relationships in general are the hardest thing that we'll ever have to deal with in life. And I find that to be true. And just again, back to gratitude. Grateful for the collection that you have, grateful for your job, grateful for all the people in your life that you care about, and just hold on to that appreciation.
I think that's a great mic drop moment right there, Jason. We're going to end a little bit early this week.
Yeah. Mark's got a hot date, everyone.
Coming to a California Reptile Show to you this summer, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much, Jason.
Of course, everybody have a good weekend. It's getting hotter in California, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And stay cool, and we will see you next week.
See you later, everybody. Have a good one.